If you look at your notes, I said that Saddhā, faith, has to be understood at two levels. The faith of someone who was a non-believer, never understood Buddhism, completely new to Buddhism. At some point, he suddenly developed faith, confidence. And then he became a believer. That's faith at one level. Then at the next level is the faith of a practitioner, which is completely different. They feel the same, but they perform a very different role. Okay? For the person, for the individual, it performs a very different role. Now, I have said that the literal translation of the word Saddhā, from now on I'm using the word Saddhā. I've said that the literal translation of the word Saddhā is faith or confidence. And what are we supposed to have faith and confidence in? We always say in Buddhism, is faith and confidence in the triple gems. Yes? Typically we'll say that. Whether you're of one tradition or the other, it's always faith in the triple gems. This is important to understand exactly what it means. It doesn't mean that I have a blind loyalty to something called Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. It is not that. This faith that Buddha talks about has to be anchored on understanding. Has to be anchored on understanding. If you don't understand what triple gems mean, then that faith is resting on shaky foundation. Which means to say that if there is anything that will rock your confidence, that's it, the whole thing will collapse. So you will hear of people who once upon a time might have been so devoted to Buddhism, and then at some point change faith to something else, completely different. It's like Babaism, something very different. And why is that? Because that faith was not anchored on the correct foundation. And what is this correct foundation? So, Buddha, the confidence that he was real, that it was a real teacher, the confidence that he was enlightened. You may not realize how significant this is. If you believe in the man, what do you believe in him? What do you believe about him? You must believe something. It cannot be just a statue. Some of us may believe that the statue is magical, but that's not what Buddhism is about. That's not what his teaching was about. You believe that the teacher who lived 2,500 years ago was enlightened, that he actually saw Dhamma, and that when he taught, what he taught will deliver what he said it would. You understand? That he was a real guy, that he was enlightened, that he taught a message, a doctrine that will deliver the results as he promised it would. If you don't believe, if you don't even realize that it is about his enlightenment and it's about his wisdom, it's about his message, then the faith is anchored on rocky ground, in shaky ground. But if you say that, okay, I know him, I know that he was teaching what he saw. When we say what he had realized, means he was telling you something he saw, he tasted for himself. That message is very critical. And that he knew what he was doing. You must know that you must believe that this teacher knew what he was doing. Okay? So that was Buddha. The second thing is then the message. Because it's about that he realized a message that will deliver results. What is this message? And how do you know that this message works? Sorry, I was going to refer also to your slides. If you look at your slides, you look exactly at what it was said. Earlier on, we chanted that Arahan Samma Sambuddho. Arahan, noble. Samma Sambuddho means fully enlightened. So that phrase says, he saw for himself. He saw it, he tasted it, he realized it. And it's a complete journey. It's a complete realization. Samma Sambuddho, fully enlightened. Which means to say that once he saw it. That's the complete story. There isn't more story. Okay? This phrase, Samma Sambuddho, means what he saw was the complete story. That's it. There's nothing else beyond that. Okay? Vijja means wisdom. Charana is conduct. Vijja Charana Sampanno, possessed of. He is possessed of wisdom and conduct. This portion is important. It tells you that once you realize, it comes with it a certain way of behaving. His behavior is consistent or was consistent with the wisdom. Which also means to tell you, which would mean that someone in his lifetime, if he claimed to have realized, it will affect the way he behaves. Because his behavior is the result of his knowledge and understanding and wisdom. The two of them must be aligned. Sugato, su, well, good, happy, su. So sukha, happiness. Gato is a journey, traveled. So sugato means this was a journey well traveled. He traveled well. It's a happy journey. To see the Dhamma and realized it, he was a happy man. It was a happy, good journey. Loka viddu. Loka means world. Viddu, one who knows. Someone who knows. It's a noun. So one who knows the world. This world is the world of the mind. In the Buddha's definition of what a world is, that world is the mental world. Your mind is a world. If you flip it around, you think about it, okay? Just think about it. Your experience of today, 今天, your experience of today, is the result of your mind interacting with the environment. Yes? You see things, you hear things, you choose what you want to focus your attention on, you respond to them. Someone else right next to you, walking with you every step of the way, will have a very different experience from you. Agree? But the two of you are together. And yet, your experience of today, very different. So one is your world, the other one is your world. So our world is unique to us. No matter how you try to share your life with another and share your world with another, it can never be absolute, it can never be perfect. And my perception of your world is my perception, all within my own prism. Right? Buddha is someone, therefore, who understands the way the mind works. And therefore, he knows the world. He knows how mind works. That's what it means lah. Anuttaro, incomparable. Purisa is human. Man, if you like, but human, okay? Dhamma sarata. Dhamma is to be tamed. Sarata is the leader, the guy who leads. What this line tells you, therefore, is this practice is about taming instincts. And he was a teacher, he was a great teacher, and he knew how to teach another to tame his instincts. From this line alone, you know that the practice has to do with taming your own instincts. And he's so good at it, he gives you the method of being able to control yourself, to control what's here. He knows this world, he knows how it works, he's telling you this is the way you can control your own instincts. I like this phrase, the next phrase. Saddha Deva Manusanang. Saddha, human. Deva, we know, are heavenly beings. Manusanang, Saddha is teacher. Okay, Saddha is teacher. Deva is beings, heavenly beings. Manusa is human. Okay. The reason why there has a nam at the back is of. Of. Okay. So teachers of gods and men. From this line, it tells me that devas can learn. This is the line that tells you that human realm, deva realms, you can still learn Dhamma. Okay? And Buddho Bhagavato, enlightened and blessed. So, this is a snapshot of who he was, what he stood for. He was a teacher, he was a sage, he was a good man, he had deep compassion to teach all kinds of people. He was a teacher. He was a very good MOE teacher. Maybe not MOE lah. He was the best, one of the best. And interestingly, he taught a specific method which seeks to achieve two things: enlightenment, taming your instincts. Through taming your instincts, arriving at enlightenment. So that was about who the Buddha was. So when we say we have faith in the Buddha, it must be that we believe he was a good man, we believe that he knew what he was teaching, we believe he was enlightened, and that when he taught, he was very successful. In his lifetime, he was very successful. In his lifetime, he was very successful. Okay, this is like his calling card, I used to say. Then the next question is, what's Dhamma? Buddha, today you can create all those Buddha Rupa. And you look at it, you can appreciate that. But what is Dhamma? No Dhamma, no Buddha. No Dhamma, no Buddha. Got Dhamma, you will still turn to Buddha. Dhamma is the doctrine that he left behind. And our belief in this doctrine is the methodology, the teaching, what it said works. The doctrine works. Works to achieve what? Works to help the individual gain unconditioned bliss and happiness. Works to help someone eradicate dukkha. Must be like that. Dhamma is about eradication of dukkha and the taste of nibbana. That joy, the unconditioned joy, the peace in the heart. Unconditioned, all this while, for the rest of us, in the way that we experience the world, is all conditioned. Someone praise us, we are happy. Someone scold us, we're not so sure. Someone give us something, we say thank you. Someone take something from us, we say why. We are very conditioned, right? But Nibbana is unconditioned. It's a joy that comes from within, that rests on nothing outside. And regardless of what's happening outside, your joy stays there. That's the amazing thing about Nibbana. Okay? So, faith in a Dhamma that it works to eradicate dukkha and to bring out unconditioned joy, that it can be experienced. You believe that it works, but then you believe this life you cannot achieve it, then what's the point? You see what I'm saying? You must, when you talk about faith in it, not only do you believe that it can work for you. That it is achievable. And it has to be so. Because if you don't believe you can achieve it, then what are you having faith in? That it worked but for somebody else. I believe that it's possible to score distinction but somebody else. Cannot lah. It has to be that it works for you. Okay? Now, if you look into the stanza, again the one that we were reciting earlier, Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo. Well expounded, Swagato. Well taught, well explained. Sanditiko, very important phrase. It means that you can see it. It has to be experienced directly. It's like saying, if I drink Coca-Cola, it will hit my nose here for sure. That's assuming it's gassy lah. The one that you put in the fridge for a long, long time, never bottle up, not sure lah. Wasabi. Taste it. Directly experience both for yourself. Wasabi works. Okay, like that, huh? Okay. Which means to say that, based on this chanting, Dhamma is not a hypothetical thing. It's not a conceptual thing. It is not something that you find in books or YouTube. It is something to be experienced in the same way, in the very same way that you will experience happiness, sadness, grief, thirst, hunger. It's very instinctive. It's very primal. Fear, for instance. Fear is something that you experience in here. Anger is something I experience. Joy is something that you experience in here. Nibbana is experienced in the exact same way. In the exact same way. It's not conceptual, it's for real. Akaliko, different people have tried and explained it a bit differently, but I kept both, okay? It's both timeless and immediate. Okay? What does it mean? It means to say, and you can understand it in two ways. One way is, doesn't matter what lifetime, doesn't matter when, what century, it's timeless. Anywhere, anytime you taste it, you taste it. Doesn't matter what century. Okay? The other way of understanding it is, when it hits you, when Dhamma knowledge arises in you, it's immediate. It's like if you do this to yourself, it hurts, it's immediate. So in the same way that when your mind is ready, the mind is calm enough, the mind is still enough, it's light enough, in that mind that is ready for Dhamma, Dhamma will be experienced like that. The knowledge will come like that. No need to think very hard, think very hard, think very hard, think very hard. Nothing. No need. Okay? For the ones who have done meditation, and there were moments when you caught a glimpse, just a small glimpse of, say, impermanence, change. For you, at that moment when you saw impermanence, timeless, right? In that moment is that moment. Suddenly it strikes you, oh, this is impermanence. Just suddenly it comes. Yeah? Okay, we must do meditation. Meditation helps. Okay? Ehi pasiko. Ehi, come. Pasiko, see for yourself. See for yourself. So what it means essentially is you can verify for yourself. It's a choice. You notice that this particular phrase tells you that it is your choice to embrace Dhamma. You choose to, then you do it. Okay? Opanaiko leading. Dhamma takes a while to grow. It goes to point and point and point. It is a growth process. Pachatam Veditabo Vinyuhiti. Veditabo, to be understood, to be known, to be realized. Vinyuhiti, by the wise. So my choice of word is intuitive insight. Realized by the wise. Dhamma is not realized by just anyone. The wise does not mean someone with a string of degrees behind them. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you're the smartest person in this room, your IQ measured the highest, you should see Dhamma one. Sure. It doesn't mean that. If you are of the mindset to be more forgiving by instinct, to see things in perspective, to not be very narrowly focused on yourself, but to be able to open the mind and embrace others. These are usually the characteristics of someone who can see Dhamma. To be able to open the mind as opposed to the mind pulling in onto itself. So the more giving, which is why in our practice, you're constantly reminded to give. Dana being the first meritorious deed, right? The more open, the more giving, the more you can embrace others. We usually say these guys are quite wise, yes? The ones who don't particularly want to pick a fight, who can be more forgiving, we say they're very wise. Those are the type, the wise, who can realize Dhamma for themselves. And I use the word intuitive wisdom, intuitive insight, because it's very instinctive. It's very instinctive. It's not logically worked through. In fact, the more logical you are, the more you like to construct, analyze, compartmentalize, the harder it is to see Dhamma. I have come across students, many students, who will debate discourses. And I can tell you they never saw Dhamma. They just saw many discourses. So don't think. Strike a middle path, okay? Middle path, everything middle path one, middle path very good. Strike the middle path, strike a balance. On the one hand, read Dhamma. On the other, learn to be quiet in the mind. Balance between the two. If you read Dhamma, but you push it to the other side, which is not quiet, you construct and deconstruct Dhamma, you have not done this side. There is no balance. Get it? Whereas if you have never read Dhamma, okay, never spend your time, no listen Dhamma, no nothing, you just be quiet. Like macam computer lah, very quiet, screensaver period, nothing to do. Mind very quiet. The mind quiet in itself is not nibbana. It's just quiet. The mind quiet is good for nibbana, but it is not nibbana. Okay? It in itself. Unless you realize already, then you're quiet lah. Then that's good. That's normal. Okay. Sangha. For Sangha, if you remember that stanza you read earlier, the one that says ya idang, so yadidang, chattari, 4, purisa yugani, after 8, purisa pugala, individual, okay? 4 pairs of 8 individual, 4 pairs of 8 types of people. This stanza already tells you that Sangha in his time referred to one type of people, and we call them the Arya Sangha, meaning to say the ones who saw Dhamma. The ones who saw Dhamma. Okay? Why 4 pairs? We have, why? So fierce. No, paper better. Oh, paper can. But very scared, right? Already that doesn't disappear for life and life. It stays.
Sorry, sister, the other pen.
Blue one?
No, the one on the glass. On the glass, no, behind.
Oh. Okay. Sorry, marker. Parlor. Path, fruit. So for all of them, there are all these Saddhā, Gami, Anagami, Arahata. And for all of them, there's these 2 sets. What are they? The first, at the primary level, the individual who caught a glimpse of Dhamma. And because they caught a glimpse of Dhamma, the energy of life has been significantly trimmed, the craving has been significantly reduced, so they can generate at most 7 rebirths. Sakadagami once returner. Their craving has been trimmed so much that at most they can generate 1 more rebirth as a human. If they don't get it, they will end up in heaven and do the rest. Anagami, the energy is so fine, that they will not generate another rebirth as a human. If they were to die without realizing Nibbana, the full works, they will end up being reborn in a place called Subhawatsu. Subha, pure. Wasu, a place where you stay. So in the typical translation, pure airborne. Okay? Arahata, the ones who fully realize, will not generate another rebirth. And the Buddha's description for them has always been that they have extinguished the energy, let down the burden, no more rebirth. Okay? So that's one set of Sangha. The other set of Sanghas are the true practitioners. People who are very serious about practicing and realizing Dhamma. So they take on the robe, they put on the Buddha's robe as a reminder to themselves that they are walking this path. Why these 2? Why have faith in these 2? 2 reasons. The first reason, they are living embodiment that this path works. That there's something to see and gain at the end of the path. And you must see for yourself that there are people who are practicing, there are people who are realizing. Otherwise, how are you going to believe that this thing works? If you yourself have not seen Dhamma, then the only way you can say that there is such a thing as Dhamma and there's such a thing as Nibbana is you saw somebody who saw it, or you saw somebody who practiced so well, it looks like he has seen it. Because he's so peaceful, he's so quiet, his mind is so happy, and so on and so forth. You don't know whether he has seen it. But looking at him, you're very inspired. Get it? So these guys are effectively the walking salesman. Walking only, not talking. Walking salesman of a product. Okay? It's like my vacuum cleaner works. Okay? It's the Dhamma works. Hey, look at me. The Dhamma works. Like that lah. Okay? That is one. The other reason is that if you don't have these guys who realize and understand, then along the way, the Dhamma will die out. True understanding of the Dhamma will die. Because they are the only one who figure it out, right? It's like saying, I want to crack a safe. It's super duper safe, very difficult to crack. You don't have the code, you can't crack. But the code is very complex, so you read the code, you crack, you figure out how to crack this safe. And the guy who managed to crack that safe, and he's the only guy who managed to crack the safe, you protect him like anything because he's the only one who knows how to crack the safe. And you get, okay, every time you close the safe, right, oh, can you get him to come back and teach again? It's like that. Then, if there is nobody who cracked the safe, that's it. Safe cannot be opened anymore. So that's the importance of having these chaps, you see. For inspiration and for passing down true knowledge of how it works. Otherwise, sky's the limit, man, how you can explain Dhamma. Nobody see it. Anybody can say anything. You can go anywhere with it. 飞呀飞去，就是这样咯。Okay? So how do we know them? How can we tell them? You look at the words the Buddha used. Practicing well, upright conduct, entered the path, practicing correctly. What's the difference between practicing well and practicing correctly? Practicing well is someone committed to the practice. He's doing all the right thing. So in this practice, you're told to observe certain rules. You honor the rules, you do it. The practice says, observe your precepts, you observe it. Observe it. The practice says you need to meditate, you meditate. And it says you must meditate correctly. You will meditate correctly. You are to hold on to a certain way of understanding the world. You will hold on to that way of understanding the world. You're very strict about the practice. You don't panchan yourself. Oh, today I don't feel like meditating. I think I sleep. Or maybe I can meditate lying down. Who is to say cannot lie down? So you happily lie down. Then you sleep 5 seconds later. And snore. But you're so happy you snore. That's practicing well. You don't sleep, you don't snore, okay? The other one, practicing correctly, is along the way you begin to realize what's the path. You begin to see what's the path. And you stay on the path. When you start off, you don't know what's the path, right? When you start off, you only have the Buddha's SOP. Okay, today you must do this, this, and this. 1, 2, and 3. That's the Buddha's SOP. So you do that. Follow it strictly. Buddha said like that, you do like that. Okay? Along the way, as your wisdom grows, you begin to realize, you begin to see the wisdom, why it has to be practiced like that. Cannot like this, cannot like that. It has to be like that within these parameters. And then you self-regulate already. The moment you see it, you self-regulate. Once you understand why it has to be like this, cannot be like this, cannot be like that, and you know how to do it properly. That's practicing correctly. Okay? And only the true practitioner and the Aryas can do it correctly. The rest of the world is likely to be, correct or not? I do like that, correct or not? What do you think? I do this, can or not? I do this, can or not? Right? Chances are, if you're doing meditation and you're not sure what you're doing, chances are you'll end up asking your teacher or you're asking someone you thought knows better, when I do this, am I doing it correctly or not? But once you got it right and you roughly know how it works, then you don't go around and, correct or not? Correct. No need to go around seeking confidence building measure lah. You just hang and go, man. You will be the one that others will be asking, correct or not? Correct or not? No, gentler. Cannot, wrong. Oh, it's scary, must be gentle, right? Now, if this is the perspective that you hold, Buddha knew what he was doing. Buddha saw the Dhamma. The Dhamma is like that. I can practice and realize it. There are people who realized it, and I can notice who are the ones. I suspect they are the ones, but never mind, I'm inspired by these guys. Your faith, if it's anchored along this line, your faith has a bit more foundation. Okay? It has a bit more foundation. And when it has the correct foundation, what happens? If this is how you see the Buddha, what I've just described, if this is how you see the Buddha, if this is how you understand the Dhamma, and this is how you regard the Sangha, what I've just explained, then what it means is you must feel the inspiration to want to practice also lah, to want to also go taste the Dhamma a little bit lah, to want to draw towards the Dhamma, be inspired to learn and do it for yourself. It's very instinctive. And a large part about the Dhamma is about learning to let go. Buddha kept saying, dukkha, arya, satya, the noble truth of dukkha, that the very nature of your existence have many components where it is dukkha. And the reason why you feel this deep sense of dissatisfaction is because you have got so much wanting, so much preferences. I prefer this, I prefer that. Every time you prefer something, you're going to feel uncomfortable. Every time. And the more you prefer something, the more uncomfortable you're going to get. The more you want it, the more painful it is. It's always the one thing that's painful, not the object, but the one thing. Okay? So if you believe in this, because this is Dhamma, if you believe in this, then in your daily life, in your normal life, you will start. In your normal life, you will say, okay lah, sudah lah. It's very natural, very instinctive. So if you have Saddhā, faith, in the triple gem, as I had explained, in somebody's absence, in the triple gem that I've explained, then you will start to manage your own expectations in a simple way. In daily life, every time you get agitated, you try to say, never mind. You remember, you do it. You don't remember, you dukkha lor. But when you remember, suddenly you remember, you do it again. And it's like that, you ding and dong. You will toggle between when I remember to just let be. I don't remember, I will fight and chiong and die. You feel very dukkha. Then when I remember again, I'll go back to, let be. You will toggle between these two extremes. But you toggle happily, okay? But the more you practice, because now you say that, I believe that Dhamma can be understood, can be realized, I go and practice. I go and do my meditation. I go and study the Dhamma club, the Dhamma and so on and so forth. The more you do that, the more you will grow in the mind. It's very gradual. I'm going to show you Kitagiri Sutta. Buddha himself said it's very gradual. But you will start to notice a change in yourself. If you don't notice any change, after you said, I'm a Buddhist, and you believe you're on the right track, that you are truly understanding Triple Gem correctly, you have started, and still you find no change in you, you're either a saint to begin with, or you're on the wrong track, completely wrong track. Not Dhamma, Adhamma, you know. It is not Dhamma that you're looking at, it's Adhamma, wrong Dhamma. Then that's possible. Because if you're on the Dhamma train, for sure, you will learn to want to manage, you will learn to be a nicer person, you learn to be and you will be a happier. The main thing is the happy moments for you will start to increase a little bit. The contentment, the joy will grow. It may be very minuscule, but you see, without Dhamma, it could have been worse. You understand? With Dhamma, already minuscule. Without Dhamma, you are in dismal. Very sad already, okay? The point that I put in here is very important. If you say, I am a Buddhist, then you must also say, I believe in karma. But when you say, I believe in karma, then you still break karma, you still do strange things. What does it say about you? Wise or not? I know karma says I shouldn't go around and smack. Never mind. 过去投胎。快去投胎。That's not being wise. That's being truly foolish. You understand? So if you say, I believe in karma, then in the way that we deal with the world, at the back of your mind, right? At the back of your mind, you say there are repercussions. Let's just be nice. Let's just do the right thing. Let's just emit some metta, you know. Sometimes it's very hard. Sometimes when you want to go and slap the fella face, it's very hard to metta. Every your metta, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's like that. But if you go back to refer to the above one, believe in karma. That's the check, you see. That's our check on ourselves. You know? And why is this karma thing so critical? I'm not asking you to just lie down there and, karma, you hit me a boomerang, this hit here. I don't mean that at all. Karma is proactive. Proactive, meaning to say the choices you make in life. Karma is not about waiting for the boomerang of the past to hit you. A lot of people forget and look at the karma, the so-called karma that comes from the past. That's a wrong attitude. That's not what the Buddha wants you to realize. That's not what the Buddha wants you to know. What the Buddha wants us to know is that understand that when you knowingly make certain choices in this life, those choices that you knowingly make will affect the quality of your mind. It will affect whether or not you will see Dhamma. It will affect whether or not you can be happy, truly happy. The ones done by someone else in the past, it's already in the past. There's nothing you can do about that one. So why do you bother wasting time thinking about what's coming your way? It's like walking under the HDB flat waiting for the flower pot to hit you, lor. You can't walk anywhere, you're paralyzed, right? So Buddhists who believe in karma live a full life. Buddhists who believe in karma lives life. Because you will say whatever, come what it may, whatever. But in this life, I choose to do the right thing. So that I believe my conscience is clear. Even if I have to have another rebirth, it will be a good one. It's clean. That's the Buddhist, correct Buddhist approach. You take charge of your life. Of it. Don't let it be dictated by your perception of what's haunting you from the past. You take charge. And you keep on having the discipline to do the right thing, to choose to do the right thing, because it's about choice. I can't emphasize enough that Buddhism is all about choice. For instance, Angulimala, my favorite example of somebody who has done terrible wrong. Terrible. He chose to become a practitioner under the Buddha. Because of that choice, he averted all the repercussions that would have haunted him all the way to death and hell, and life and hell, and life and hell, and it goes on. But because he chose to practice, that's it. Clean, you walk. If it can work for him, it surely must work for the rest of us. Because seriously, how many of us have killed so many people? How many of you have killed one person? Don't have, It's okay, Okay. And the last point which I said was, if you truly believe in the triple gem, you will also want to do the right thing. You want to choose to live by his teaching. And even if you don't understand, okay, for whatever reason in this life you don't realize the Dhamma, but by choosing to live by his tenet properly, not through fear, through ignorance and fear, that's not living by his tenet. Through understanding and with wisdom, you make the correct choices and you live by his teaching, you will experience all those wonderful emotions, sensations. And I listed some of them. The metta, the karuna. Metta, loving kindness. Karuna, compassion. Mudita, empathy. Upekkha, equanimity. You don't have to realize to be like that. I want to emphasize this. You don't have to be one of these guys in order to be compassionate. Yes? All of you here are compassionate. Maybe not all of you at all time have metta, but metta must come relatively easy for many of you. And I can almost bet a lot of you here have empathy. Sometimes you're not very upekkha. Sometimes we're not very upekkha. But when you are upekkha, you feel really quite good. You see, what is beautiful is that the Buddha describes and tells you the specific mental state that one can experience. I mean, look, all of us have experienced compassion, being friendly, being nice and kind. All of us have learned empathy, has given empathy, being empathetic to another, right? But he puts them together as a package deal and say, these are good qualities. And he calls them Brahma Vihara, which is a beautiful word. Brahma, I know, translated as noble, Vihara, way of life, living. But what it means is that the mind is above national average. For those of you who have attended my class, you know the above national average and the below national average. You see, my basic belief is this. The normal human being, which we define as national average, the normal person has lobha, greed, dosa, anger, moha, ignorance, unwise moments. Okay? That's a national average. Because you have these qualities, under the correct conditions, you will make the wrong choices. If someone confronts you, your instinct is to fight back. Someone takes your thing, someone occupies your parking lot, you will go and chiong and fight over that square, that rectangular, and so on and so forth, right? So those are what I call the correct conditions you will react in the wrong way. And that's national average. If you have Brahma Vihara as part of your instincts, then you are above national average. Because an above national average individual react with restraint, react differently from another who reacts instinctively. So you get into a lift in Singapore, when you get into a lift, you're likely to look at your phone because you don't want to look at other people. Or you look at the number. I was reading with some bemusement that they did a social experiment once, and in one of this, fortunately not in Singapore, but in one of these lifts, they actually took away the numbers. And everybody hated that lift because they go in, they didn't know where to stare. When you stare at the number, it tells you when you are free to be out of the other's presence, you see. You're out into your space. But when they took away the number, they don't know what to expect. So there was a lot of unhappiness within the lift, okay? And that's the instinct of the human, the normal human, is not friendly. It's territorial. It's space. So when you instinctively smile at another, grin at another, talk to another, of course, if you look like a lecherous man, then the instinct of the other is to siam, take a bag and put up in your face. But if you were to generally smile at someone else, then the other will be very pleasantly surprised and smile back at you. You are therefore above national average. Get it? Empathy, you may think, is very easy and very normal empathy. You know what's empathy, right? But, a lot of us are actually instinctively not empathetic. I'll give you an example. Someone tells you that I need money, I'm feeling very poor, I have all these heavy burden, and then he sighed. Though you feel a bit sorry, right? Then the next minute you realize that he drank his money away, or he went to Marina Bay Sands often. You will lose that empathy immediately. Yes? So therefore your empathy is conditional. Conditioned upon what your mind thinks and construct. Did it diminish that he's in pain? No, he's still in pain. But yet, your sense of feeling sorry for him dropped to below freezing zero because you were so disapproving that he gambled his money away. Therefore, you deserve it. You silly man. This is how your mind works, you see. But truly empathetic, you just feel sorry. You're in pain. The guy's in pain. He may be a silly man, but he's still in pain. So your empathy shouldn't reduce. You just feel sorry that he's a silly man, as opposed to feeling annoyed that he's a silly man and not burdening you with his story. Such an evil fella. You see what I'm saying? So empathy is very cute. Empathy comes with a story. For many of us, the empathy comes with a story. Whereas if you are truly empathetic, you feel his pain regardless of the story. That's all. You feel the person's pain, you feel you feel for him regardless of what story is there. It makes you bigger. It makes your mind more open. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying this is how the mind works. Okay? Okay, I'm going to talk about I'll finish up the next segment and then we'll take a break. I'll talk about the Saddhā of the practitioner last. That one is a bit more complex. You need to understand that Saddhā as a concept evolved through time. And that's the second part of my explanation. Saddhā as a concept, you see, all that I've explained, you understand, yes? Then some of you may say, but what about all those bowing and all those praying, all those chanting? Where do they all fit in? Those are evolution of time. In the time of the Buddha, if you look at the sutta, it was very clear. In the earliest of days, he would say, come, sit, listen, hear, reflect. Meaning to say, you choose to go to him, you choose to pay attention to what the Dhamma he was teaching. Then you compare what was said with your own experience, so you reflect. And as a result of measuring what he said with your own experience, you come to a certain conclusion about the validity of what he was teaching. And then you accept. So your faith, rested on two things. Rested on the teacher explaining something, and rested on you having examined that teaching and say, teaching makes sense. I like it. I like that it makes sense. So because it makes sense and I like it, I will follow it. So in the early days, which is what I wrote here, you have to think, reflect, and make choices after thinking about it. It's a higher order intellectual exercise. You are not making a blind decision. So no blind faith. You have already heard the Dhamma. And you say the Dhamma resonates with what you understand of your experience in life. And it seemed to offer you a solution to your life's problems, your sense of problems. It offers a solution. So because of that, you say, I want it, I buy. So you listen to the vacuum cleaner, right? Fella's explaining vacuum cleaner, suck this, suck that, then you're very impressed. I like, I buy. Not, my friends say your vacuum cleaner very good, I don't know what it is, but I buy. Then you go home, don't know what to do with it. Then you put it in a corner, then it collects dust. And then over time, you throw it away, buy another one. Why not? See that? Whereas if you had listened to it, you believe in what it delivers and you really like it, and you take it, you will use it. This vacuum cleaner, go home and it really works, you like it, you use it. So faith, Saddhā, during this period, in the earliest day, was the result of understanding. Knowing what was taught, understanding what was taught, liking it because it seems to resonate with your life experience, take it. Now, not everyone has that of caliber to hear the Dhamma and understand the Dhamma. Not everyone has that caliber. So sometimes, this is all in the Buddha's time, during his period. As the Sangha was growing, there were people who were not ordained by the Buddha. There were people who joined when they heard Dhamma, but did they hear from the Buddha? They're not really sure whether they heard it correctly. There's all kinds of people. The Sangha was growing. The lay support was also growing. Along the way, there was a need to then provide something concrete for people to see and have feelings towards. So one of the earliest things that they brought up was the Bodhi tree. Why the Bodhi tree? Because in the time of the Buddha, the local population actually worshipped trees in the belief that underneath trees got devas. Buddha himself, if you remember, in the day before his enlightenment, he had a meal from Sujata, if you remember, that lady who offered him meal. The lady was going to offer a meal to a tree deity. And her maid had mistaken identity, thought that Buddha looked so handsome, must be the tree deity, went home and called her. And of course she came running and realized that, no, they're not human. But never mind, he's quite handsome also. I like what you're doing. The Metta, he was a very sweet man, he was a very kind man, so she was also very inspired. Then She knew that he was a practitioner, and then she said, okay, you have it. So it was a practice at that time to be worshipping at the foot of trees. And so to introduce something a bit more intelligent than just a tree, they chose that tree that sheltered him for enlightenment. I mean, during his period of practice towards enlightenment, it was believed that a particular tree was where he sat under. So then these guys said, okay, then we'll pay respect to this tree. That was how it started. And you know, in the old days, they all came with presents for him. They loved to dana him. Just as we love to dana whom we think to be attained monk or very good monks, we've got a lot of chemistry with the monk. We also love to dana, right? Same thing lah. These guys all went to dana the monk, Bhante, Buddha. And when he wasn't around, he used to travel a lot in his younger days. They would then put it at his house, you know, where his kuti, they just put it there, put it everywhere. So Ananda went, cannot, all over the place, you know. Let's do something more useful. Let's put it under some place lah. So they then have it more consolidated, so the offerings don't go all over the place. So in the early days, introduce some symbols for promotion of faith, Saddhā, okay? And we also have read in the suttas that there was young monks, new novice monks, who must meet the Buddha in order to get inspired. But we know that there were occasions where they would come visit here and make so much noise, clink, clang, clink, clang, clink, clang, and he told them, hey, you go away. You are making too much noise, like fishmongers, go away. That happened. And so we know then that people needed to see something for inspiration. Buddha's time, okay? Normal. But after he passed away, got problem lah. What's going to happen, right? And that's where what I call the next phase of development. He's gone. You need to create objects that you can distribute, can decentralize, can go everywhere. And it's over time, you know, it didn't start all at once. It's over time. It started with the stupas. His death, the relics, remember the relics that they all distributed? Why grab the relics? The relics were like a representation of him. So when he passed away, people fought over the relics because they were him, you see. They were representation of him. They took these relics and they built monuments, stupas, and at crossroad, convenient for people to pay respect to, and so on. And then over time, we got enough relics to go around, right? And what Asoka apparently did was, he went to dig up all the relics and he redistributed them so that they go even further. There's plenty to go around, it's all bone fragments, right? Originally, they were 8 relics, 8 sites. Asoka apparently dug them all up and then redistributed them such that there are, according to commentaries, 84,000 parts size. We don't know if it's like that. We don't know if it's 84,000. That sounds like a lot. Yeah. Ashes. We don't know, okay? We don't know if it's indeed 84,000 sites, but we know that he was the one who dug it up and then re-sent it out. In fact, there's actually a documentary on that. There was actually one documentary, which is quite interesting, but there's a story for another day. About proof. That documentary actually managed to prove that one of the relics was probably buried by Asoka. And it was a small piece, just a small bit. And this was the one buried on Sakyan soil, Sakyan land. So that was very interesting. Okay, anyway, now, you know the chanting that we did, right? The Itipiso Bhagava Arahan. If you notice what I wrote here, I said that it was essentially his calling card. In the time of the Buddha, when people talk about Sakya Muni, which is what he's called in the Mahayana tradition. It means he was the sage, Muni, of the Sakyan. Okay? Meaning Gautama Buddha. And when they say that we are going to see Gautama Buddha, they will chant this. They will say that, oh, you know, Gautama Buddha, I heard that he is like that, like that, like that, like that, like that, and like that, like that. Okay? What does it mean? It means this was his reputation. That's how his contemporaries knew him. It wasn't a magical chant. It's not to ward off evil. It was his calling card. It's how the people of his time knew him. They knew him to be a teacher, a good man, a wise man who practiced what he preached, whom they believed was enlightened. It's a wonderful, intelligent chap. In other words, and it's not some magical chant, okay? And all those suttas that we read, right? Whether it's Mangala Sutta, Ratana Sutta, whatever sutta that you read, they were put together to help his disciples remember the teaching. They are again not magical spells. The suttas were not meant to, again, ward off evil per se. They're not meant for that. They're meant to teach. It's like teaching kindergarten. 1 plus 1, 2. 2 plus 1, 3. 3 plus 1, 4. Or 1 times 1, 1. 1 times 2, 2. You know, it's basically to help people remember the teachings better. Whereas along the way, sometimes people forget because it's a different language, because it sounds so alien, it began to sound magical. And so the original meaning was lost, okay? Even much later, they started introducing all kinds of elaborate rituals. Buddha's time, no ritual one. You want to visit the Buddha? No need to make appointment. No need to call PA. Hello, Ananda, Buddha in? No need. You only have to go down to where you think he lives, okay? And you ask any monk who's wandering around, because there are plenty of them wandering around. They say, excuse me, where's Gautama, Master Gautama's, because you're not a disciple, right? Master Gautama's hut, and then they will say, oh, you see that one with the red door? That one. Then you go to the one with the red door, and then you're supposed to go, basically give early warning lah. And then you knock, okay? And then he'll open the door, and he'll come out, and you can pay your respect, exchange your pleasantries in any way you want. And it's said in the sutta, you can bow, which means you are a disciple. You can, hello, I'm so-and-so from Ang Mo Kio, which means you are just a friendly visitor. Or you can, don't say anything. Don't say anything. So you're very skeptical. You're one of those non-believers. We're going there to just look-see lah. Also okay. And then if you're truly disciple and you're truly in love with the Buddha, there are many who are in love with the Buddha, you go there, you kiss his feet, kiss his feet. Buddha's feet hello. This was the ultimate respect, and we know it happened, because at least 2 instances of mention of someone doing it to his feet. One of which is Pasenadi himself. You read, I forgot which sutta it was. Well, anyway, one of the suttas, he actually went down and hugged and kissed his feet. Pasenadi, 80-year-old like the Buddha, okay? The old man creaking away, going down on his knees, and that was the ultimate show of respect. In the time, that was the ultimate show of respect. Okay? So, no rituals, no mudras, no how to bow, must bow in this way, that way, and all those things. Nothing. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. You do whatever you want. And Buddha is not the sort who will say, excuse me, I Buddha. But you just send it like that. You must do this, they correct, ma. Hello. Don't have, okay? None of the above. But subsequently, as the teaching started to spread beyond the original northeastern space where the Buddha of India, northeastern India was where the Buddha operated in. As it started to spread outwards, some of its driving philosophy started to change. In Buddha's time, he was trying to guide practitioner to realization. Ultimately, the Buddha's mission was teach Dhamma for realization. I will guide you there. I'll show you how it's done. The rest of the journey you have to continue. That was the Buddha's time. But as it started to spread to other parts, the monks were carrying it all over, wanted to not just guide individual to realization, which is still part of the mission, but to bring people into the faith. So it wasn't about the practitioner, it was also about popularizing it to the masses. So your audience will start to change. You know, we know this, right? Another Pindika on his deathbed asked to speak to the lead monks of the day, who was essentially Sariputta and Ananda. When these monks came, he asked for sutta, he asked for Dhamma. And Sariputta, at his deathbed, gave him a Dhamma talk on Dhamma practice. Ananda Pindika was so touched, so moved to tears. He literally moved to tears. Then he said, you know, I've always listened to Dhamma talk. I've never listened, I've never heard this from Buddha. And at that point, the point made was, this was taught to the practitioners. It wasn't a talk that he was delivering to the masses, the mass audience, because the mass audience had difficulty truly understanding the deeper, higher Dhamma. So we know that in that period, they were pegging the suttas and the teachings to the individual's ability to understand. Okay? But subsequently, when Dhamma was spreading all over India, they're not doing it this way anymore. It was mass spreading. Bringing in by the number, faith, drawing in people by faith. So that they, in part because you want to offer people a chance to understand, hear Dhamma, but it is also about, in the old days, this is way back then, it was also about support for Sangha. The more disciples, the greater the support for Dhamma work, for Sangha. And then how are you supposed to teach Dhamma to people who can't understand Dhamma? Teach faith, lor. Teach it a little differently. So they start to peg it lower, just pure building faith. So the original message was starting to get a little murky, a little blurred. Okay? Now, there is still a role for ritual. There's still a role for ritual, but only if the person understands that this ritual is for you to practice mindfulness. So when you're doing the ritual, you're very mindful doing it, then it becomes anchoring the mind on an activity. Okay? And you must understand you're doing it because you're trying to anchor the mind on activity. That's one. Two, so doing it with mindfulness. The second thing is, when you're doing it, and if it helps you, in the process of doing it, helps you to develop your faith. I'm very happy. When I'm doing this, I'm very happy. And the happier I am, the more I feel connection with Buddha. So be it. Understand that this particular ritual lightens your mind, keeps you light, keeps you happy, gladdens you, and therefore, after you have done the ritual, you should sit and meditate. Because after you have done this ritual, after you have done your chanting, whatever it is, for you, it works to anchor your mind and lighten your heart. Then your mind can sit and meditate. If it does nothing for you, because some people are just not wired to react to ritual, okay? If it does nothing for you, then don't feel the compulsion to do it. Don't do it because you think that the Buddha had certain expectations of you. And if you don't do it, I don't bless you today. Don't look at it that way, because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Okay? As I said, the time of the Buddha, look, you are with the living Buddha, you know. He's around. And nobody performs ritual. Absolutely nobody. In fact, it was really quite, the very first time when I was reading the sutta and I saw that stanza that tells you how people greeted him in the past, I went, oh, beyond no respect. Because this guy was just, he walked to the corner and just stood down there and stared at the Buddha. That's all he did. He did nothing. He didn't say, hi, you know, some pleasant things lah. Even in the old days, they have pleasantries, by the way. Have you eaten? You know, that kind of pleasantry. What do they say? Yeah, something along that line. Have you eaten? Are you good? Are you faring well? Are you faring well? This is not magic. This is just being polite. Like 我们讲, 你好吗? 吃饱了吗? You know, that kind of thing. They had that also, okay? You read the suttas, you'll come across these things. Okay, we will stop here for a little break. 10, 15, your choice. When you're ready, we start to do the next lot, okay?